Grace, mercy, and peace to you from God our Father and our Lord Jesus the Christ. Bobby Fischer used to be a household name that was thrown around by people who thought that they were very elite. But Bobby Fischer was a very accomplished chess player. He not only won the World Championship, but in the process he beat the best chess player that the world had ever seen. It was a Russian, and Bobby Fischer won. What most people probably didn't know is that Bobby Fischer was a real enthusiast for museums. He loved to go to museums. And when he was even a young boy of about 8 or 9 years old, his mother took him to a large museum, and they came by a painting that said checkmate on it. And the painting depicted two players. One was obviously Satan by his appearance, you could tell that. And the other player was just a young man. Satan had a very sinister, smug look on his face. And no wonder, because the opposite player was pulling his hair out, and tears were running down his face, and sweat was building up on his forehead. And it was clear from the people who were watching that this was checkmate. That Satan had made his move, and the young player was just about ready to give up. Here was a picture of hopelessness. Here was a picture of someone who was obviously defeated, who could no longer play the game or played it well, but not well enough against Satan. And you know, when I think about that, I probably wonder to myself how Jesus felt on Good Friday and the day before Easter. How did he feel? He talks about being abandoned by God. He talks about everything being finished. He talks about commending his soul and his hands to the Lord, to God himself. And no wonder. He had been through a horrendous days. He had been through a week that was filled not only with 6 trials. Most people only consider Jesus to have had 2, but he actually, if you read it closely, had 6 trials. He was flogged, and that was not just a whip with, with one strand. Those are bad enough. But they usually had 5 or 6, or sometimes even 12 leather strands. And in the end, there was a hole that would put bones in there, or little pieces of rock, or whatever they could find that would be sharp enough that when the person who was being flogged was hit, that literally flesh would fly out. He'd been flogged almost 40 times. Unbelievable pain, unbelievable problems, unbelievable pain. And not only had been flogged, he'd been made a false king with a crown of thorns. Have you ever seen those long thorns? I can remember one time when I was trying to play farmer that I had a tractor and I was driving it and I drove it too close to these thorns. And those thorns actually punctured a big tractor tire. You can imagine what would happen to Christ's head. Yes, this was a picture of hopelessness. But you and I also have our own battles with hopelessness. When we stand at the grave where we once wept, when we look at our spouse and have just heard the news that he or she wants a divorce, when we have the notice given to a person that they're going to be fired and that they no longer have a place for them, and on, you and I can go and we can add our own statements of hopelessness that we have experienced. And it would be sad if we ended there. But we don't have to end there. We don't have to end there because Christ himself told us that there is more to come. And looking at the picture, the painter, one of the things that we need to not forget is that this painting not only ended in hopelessness, but when Bobby Fischer was walking through the museum and seeing this picture, he sat down and for hours he studied the picture. For hours he studied the picture, and when his mother came and said, "It's time for us to go," he said, "No, Mom, no, Mom." He still has one move. He still has one move. You see, the Easter message for all of us is that Christ will always give us one more move. Christ will be that move for us. There is no question, there should be no question in our minds that as long as we have Christ, we will always have another move. Christ is risen.